This is a little follow-up on the hand crank embroidery that I am trying. Um, I'm a pen and ink artist, and so the cross-hatching, which may look sloppy to a lot of you, is actually a basic foundation for drawing anyway. So a lot of times when you learn about machine embroidery, about doing it yourself, you don't come at it from that perspective. You come at it from probably more of a coloring perspective because you're used to seeing an image and you know you want to color it in with thread. So my method is a little bit unorthodox simply because I'm a pen and ink artist. I mean, I've been drawing since I was 5. I can remember the first thing I drew when I was 5. So this, where there are splotches of color, is perfectly natural for me. And if I were to add red, yellow, I would keep doing it until I get an overall blended effect. Now, I'm not sure if I'm going to take this piece to that length, but a similar method of painting is egg tempera, where you take very tiny, minuscule little paint strokes. You use a size 00 brush and a paint that is, egg is the binder, and you build up layers of these miniature little strokes. So if you don't feel all that comfortable with how I do this, don't be surprised, because I have 40 years of art history that I'm shoving into this. But at the same time, it's a simple way for people to start. Now, I made a paper just with the 2 different types of basic stitches that I'm going to be doing. And the top is the cross hatching in 3 directions, which I already mentioned in a couple of videos. But the bottom is long and short. Now that's a typical embroidery stitch. But on this piece, that's like this morning I want to do her ears. In the original painting of this, she's obviously brown, but she has pink on the inside of her ears, so I want to do the pink on the inside of the ears. And that I would do in the long and short stitch. Now, generally, if you're filling in a graphic, such as the dog, I would use a long and short. All of this is kind of scribbling, but it's just to build up a background. And if you start a small piece like this is about 8 inches square, you can get used to using any machine, whether it's hand crank, treadle, electric, to get the feel of doing it, of moving the hoop. The other thing I want to mention, a couple of weeks ago, I mentioned that I had found thread sets that came with class 15 bobbins and spools, and you get like 32 thread spools and 28 bobbins in each set. It went up a little bit from $13.99 to 15 something, but it's a wonderful way. It's cheap polyester thread. It will fray in some machines if your stitch isn't correct, but I've had it working in many of the machines, and it's a wonderful way to buy 32 colors to try out embroidery. So I'll put the link in there. Now the other thing is, for me, I'm probably going to write a book on a pen technique that I kind of invented, I don't know, 30 years ago. This is similar to me doing that. So again, if I end up switching temporarily, partly because of my leg, partly because I have to move and all my pen equipment is cumbersome to drag around. I have 6 toolboxes of pen equipment. The reason I'm mentioning that is because if you have one machine and one darning plate and one embroidery foot, or in this case it's a stop-X. And if you have PTSD or a disability or issues of any kind, coloring in general stimulates the mind and lets you just get it all out. And if you transfer that to doing it in thread, it can be almost as inexpensive if you buy just generic threads to use. In other words, explore all the different positives that might come from drawing or doing artwork in thread. I got really annoyed about 9 years ago, when they all of a sudden came out with adult coloring books. And if you notice, when you look at those, they're all kind of like this, with tiny little spaces and completely overworked designs, when the whole relaxation and letting go of color is more big spaces, simple design. So my suggestion is to buy kids' coloring books, because they're more about coloring and less about, oh, I'm an adult with an issue and I'm going to do this. You know, I mean, they just put the whole wrong context on adults who color. And this is why I'm saying I come at these things from a different direction. I tend to be opinionated about everything. But at the same time, if you want to start out with any machine and a machine embroidery, if you start with cross-hatching, now you can do that very tightly and fill in your space just with cross-hatching, like I showed on the Red Cross quilts. This would be the, I'm thinking the only second stitch you might ever need is long and short. I think that any kind of embroidery you're generally going to be doing are going to be one of those two options. So I'm going to try today to do long and short on the dog's ears in either a pink or a lavender. And that's the advantage of these thread sets. There are like 5 pinks in there. So you don't have to go out and buy embroidery thread that's like $80 to have a lot of colors. You can try it first with these. It's relaxing. Even with a hand crank, it's relaxing.